When you're searching for files on a Mac, be aware of the different sizes of the actual Finder window and of the different views. So let's say, for example, you were looking for something inside of the Documents folder. You can start by going down to the bottom left-hand corner and clicking on the Finder icon. It'll open this up. Now, I can't mimic the view here, but sometimes you see a really tiny view. But next to it, somewhere up in here, you'll see a little like V, or what some people call a caret. And when you click on that, it makes the view bigger. So that's one thing that'll help. Also, if it's just small because you have it small and you can open it up, that'll help too. Also, you have the different choices of what you want this to look like when you're looking for things. I typically like the list option. Some people, when they're looking for images, like to use this option here. Also, if you feel like, where the heck am I right now? I mean, it'll tell you up here you're inside of Documents, but let's say you weren't really 100% sure. You can always go to the word Go on the main menu of Finder, and you can choose a different location to start your search from. So if you want to go all the way to Home, for example, click on that. It'll show you everything that's inside of the Home feature, including Documents. So then you would click on Documents, and then you might feel a little more comfortable now that you've gotten to it that way. And then you just keep on going, find the folder that you're interested in, or the file. Saving and file backup is so important. Every semester I hear the stories of students losing hours worth of work because they did not save before a computer crash or didn't bother to have a backup thumb drive for their entire portfolio in some cases. That's really sad. So don't rely on just one thumb drive. They go bad. Multiple backups is a must. I would say the cheapest way to go would be to buy 3 thumb drives, and then you have 2 of them that you kind of do the back and forth, especially if you're working from multiple locations, like maybe a classroom, home, library, and then you keep 1 as a true backup. Emailing yourself is a temporary way of making a backup as well. It's very, very hard to beat the convenience of cloud-based backup, but you do have to typically pay a monthly fee once you go past the minimum that some storage facilities will give you for free. Like I believe Google Drive was given 5 gig for free maybe. iDrive is another one that's worth looking at. Okay, so quiz question. You should have how many backups of your files? 2. More doesn't hurt, but 2 is good. And notice that's not just 2 copies of your work. That's 2 backups. So you've got the file that you're working on, and then you have a backup. Especially when you finish the project, have a backup plan. Like if you're not doing cloud-based, have a backup plan at maybe grandma or grandpa's house where you stick a thumb drive behind the cookie jar. And that way, if the worst case thing happens, you have a fire on your computer and it melts your computer and it melts your thumb drive, you at least have another place to go for your portfolio. And it really helps to be organized in your folder structure. Just simple things like folders inside of folders, like one folder for the class you're in with me as opposed to the class that you're taking with somebody else. I've seen students with just nightmare file systems where they're trying to turn something into me and I look over their shoulder at their files and it's just like hundreds of files and they're desperately sweating searching for the file. Just give you an example. Let's say you go to your documents and you're looking for a logo to turn into me, and now you got this stuff all spread out here, and on a Mac the files in the folder are not separated. They're all intermixed with each other. So folders are pretty much a necessity. So it would make a whole lot of sense if you did a folder structure, say like this. Give it the class name. Let's say you're in a class called Graphic Design 1, 2, 3, and then inside of Graphic Design 1, 2, 3, you should probably break it down by project. So, and all I'm doing is I'm right-clicking and selecting new folder, or command clicking. You can also go up to Finder and you can go File, New, and and then, well, actually, it's, yeah, File and New Folder. And then when it first arrives, it's ready to be typed in. So let's say we called this, let's pretend we're working on a logo project. You can just simply name it like that. Now what you want to do is get all of these things named logo in here. And so you can select files that are right next to each other, selecting multiples by clicking on the first one, going to the last one in the list. Even if it was 50, in this case it's only 2, you hold down the Shift key and click again, and it'll give you that entire string. And then you're going to move that over to GD123, and then to select, let's get the rest of them now. To select those that are not right next to each other, you just click on the first one, and then when you find another one, you hold down the Command key, click on it, and it looks like that's all of them. And then we'll click and drag, move those to the folder, and then we'll double click on the folder to go inside of it. And then now let's grab these. So click on the first one, shift click on the last one, and then I can hold down the Command key, click on that one, and then we're going to click and drag to we're over the top of the logo. And then if we hit this back arrow, we can go back 1, we can go back 2. So now we're back to the main documents, and then we have GD123, a class that I'm taking, and inside of that folder is my first project. And then when I start on my second project, I can right click, new logo, name that, and then it makes my life a lot easier. Now sometimes folders are not just convenient but an absolute must, and 2 examples would be if you're working on web design, you want your local root folder, the one that you're working on as you go, to have all of your stuff in it. That just is a necessity. The other time is when you're working with a program such as Illustrator, InDesign, and you have images placed inside of your, for example, Illustrator file. If you were to just take that file, the Illustrator file, with you, and you didn't take the images with you, and you went to another computer, you're going to have problems. And when you're taking an online class and doing everything from home, you might miss that grand old experience of showing up to class, plugging in your thumb drive, opening up your Illustrator file, ready to show how great your work is, and the little message comes up that says image could not be found, or your fonts are that you spent all this time finding just the right fonts aren't there because they're not on that computer that you just opened up your file on. To demonstrate this issue and explain this next topic, I'm going to make a little Illustrator file with you. So I'm going to open up Illustrator, I'm going to go create new. Really doesn't matter what size this is, so I'll just go with letter, and we'll click create. And our project should open up. There we go. There's our artboard, our working area. And let's say this was a project that was going to have a little bit of type on the top and an image here. This won't be pretty, but it'll get the point across. So you grab the text tool, you search for just the right font for hours and hours and hours, and you finally find just the right one. And what do I want here? I'm just going to go with Palatino. Okay. And you click and you type away. You'll learn how to do this if you don't know already, but it's just for the point for right now. So you have your perfect text in here, and then you search for just the perfect image from your camera. You found the image you want, you now have it on your desktop. On Illustrator, you go to File, Place, you navigate to find that image which is on your desktop, so you might have to come up here. If you don't see the word desktop, you might have to go to something real basic far down the list, and then you should see desktop there. And then a lot of times the desktop will have a lot of junk on it, and you might have to go to date added to sort it that way, and there, and you place that, and we'll have to resize that, so Command minus to back out so I can see everything there. Yeah, that's really big. And we'll click on that, we'll go to the corner, hold down the shift key to constrain the portions, and get that in place and keep monkeying around with the shift key down, constrain the proportions, and I don't know, let's just say that that's good for now. We're going to keep it like that until we go to the library to work on it some more. So we want to save it. We'll do a file, save as, and since we saved the other thing on the desktop, the image, that's where we're going to put this too. So at this point what we do is probably stick our thumb drive in the computer and then find that Illustrator file that we just made and drag it onto the thumb drive. Another advertisement for organizing folders because it took me a while to find this, but here it is. So let's say we stick the thumb drive in, we just simply drag and drop that onto the thumb drive and we'd have it. Let's say we go to the library, we open this up to work on it, and most likely what's going to happen is when you open it up, you could see something like this, where your image was, there's just a border around it, maybe a question mark, and a message might pop up, could not find the image. Your type might be surrounded by pink and in some hideous font, not the one you spent hours choosing. Okay, so let's fix one of those problems and answer a test question. When sending files to a commercial printer or going to another computer, like in the library, I need to be aware of other files that might be attached and the possibility of missing fonts. I should keep my main file or files and my attached files in the same. Answer is folder. So whether you're saving files in documents or on the desktop, make a folder. So command click or right click, new folder, give the project a name that makes sense that you'll be able to find later, and put that Illustrator file in there and the image. Now, worst case scenario, you go to the library or the printer opens up your file, even if the image isn't directly attached, but it should be. You should test this first on another computer before you ever send it to a printer. So let's just stick with your example of in the library, you open this up, but it doesn't find the image. It'll say, can't find image, would you like to locate it now? You click yes, you go back into this folder, click on the image, and it'll put it right back where it was. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why don't I just embed the image and make it part of the document? Sometimes that's a good option. Most of the time it's not. And let me tell you a couple reasons why. First one is if you are constantly updating this image in Photoshop as you are working on the project in Illustrator, if you embed it, you have to re-embed it every time you make a change. If you just simply have it placed like we did here, then it will update automatically and the changes that you made in Photoshop will show. That's reason number one. Reason number two has to do with what we're going to talk about as far as sequential numbering and multiple copies of the same file. When you are working on projects, you want to come up with a system of sequential file and folder savings. So sometimes an entire project will just go bad, and it's very nice to be able to just go back and lose like maybe a half hour or an hour's worth of work than it is to have to start the project completely over. So let me show you an example with just file naming. So let's say in this example, you're smart now, you're saving your work inside of a folder, whether it's on the desktop or not, and let's say just something as simple as you saving it as project 1. Okay, so far so good. Now you have made some significant work on here now, so I mean, this is obviously a ridiculous example, but let's say you just added a whole bunch more stuff to this. You're obviously going to save often, but a very smart thing to do would be do your file, save, then do a file save as, and give this a sequential number like 0, 1. Hit the save button again,